Hi guys, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I'm reviewing The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. This book was first published in 1970, and it won the Nobel Prize in Literature, which I think is pretty freaking cool, and honestly one of the reasons why I read this book. Also, it's Black History Month, so if I'm going to read a challenging book by an African-American author, this seems like the time to do it. This book is set in 1941. It mostly follows the story of Pecola Breedlove, and it's not an easy story or an easy read. It deals with a lot of very mature ideas, and it's very descriptive. So definitely a mature teen to an adult read. So very early on in the book, we find out that Pecola has been raped by her father and impregnated, and that she loses the baby. And as the story kind of backtracks and we get to know Pecola more, we find out a lot of the things that have led up to this event happening and how the community deals with it and how Pecola deals with it. So most of the story, especially early on, it's narrated by Pecola's friend Claudia. So we have Claudia and her sister Frida and their story and like kind of how they see Pecola as this friend they have and a classmate. For a while, Pecola comes to live with Claudia and her family, and it's cool to see like this simple childhood, and even within the racism of the 40s and dealing with this African American community that's very poor, like seeing like the everyday stuff is cool. And I love the relationship that Claudia and her sister have, and I really like Claudia and Frida as characters. They kind of stop this from being incredibly depressing because they do have this like fight in them. Like they recognize that this is wrong, that the racism and the segregation and the sexism isn't okay, even if everyone else in the community kind of just seems to accept it. That we have these two girls who don't think it's right, and because they're so young, they don't know how to like fight it yet. But there's kind of this hope in them that makes this bearable. Um, so I love Claudia as a character. Picola's a very passive character, and she doesn't have very good self esteem. She comes from this family that's very like all about themselves. Like her dad cares very much just about himself, and her mom, while trying to take care of the family, kind of also still has her own life and doesn't like um, try to give Pecola more self esteem. And her like brother runs away, and so it's not an easy family she comes from. Combined with the fact that she has like the darkest skin in the community, so she's seen as the ugliest. Um, and there's nothing inherently like ugly about her, but she's just constantly told that she's ugly because she doesn't match this blonde hair, blue eyed, light skin ideal that even within the community they have. Like this ideal white girl is also the ideal for this whole community, and it's a standard that they're never going to be able to live up to. And so Pecola's greatest wish in life is to have like the bluest eyes and to look like that white girl that she's not going to be. Um, it's also kind of sad because Pecola's greatest moment of happiness and like the greatest gift she ever receives is somebody telling her like that she's beautiful and giving her this one compliment, and like this is one sliver in this book where she's happy. Um, and it's cool like the power of compliments, but also sad that like she doesn't hear that all the time, like that contrast. This book also switches perspectives, and we find out a lot about the characters in this whole community. Um, Not just about Claudia and her family and Pecola, but also like Pecola's parents and like how they met and how they grew up, and finding out about other characters in the town. Like there are these three prostitutes who live together, and we find out their stories, which was really interesting. And like this traveling preacher. So there's not just Pecola's story, but like this bigger community, and so we see this broad range of what the society is like, and how all these different people deal with different parts of life and like their outlooks on life and how they deal with it. It's really kind of depressing. So a large part of this book is kind of these characters constantly getting beat down between the racism and sexism and the segregation and just separation between them and the whites, but also the separations between like they have their own groups within this community, and like the prostitutes are seen as less than everyone else, and we have the women who are seen as less than the black men. Um, and like definitely there's a hierarchy in a society. It's hard to see the reactions of everyone else in the community about Pecola and like what's happening. Like there's definitely some victim shaming going on here when she gets raped and pregnant, and everyone, like there are people in the community who think she must have been asking for it or done something to invite it to happen, or that she wanted it to happen or that she liked it. And it's frustrating and angering to see that. And there are some people in the community who like pity her, and some people who are just completely disgusted by this fact that happened to her. And nobody really tries to help Pecola, though. It's also weird to think of this happening because it takes place in Lorain, Ohio, which is not far from here, where I am in Cleveland. So I always think of like this kind of racism happening much farther south, like in Alabama or Mississippi or the Carolinas or something. Like not in Ohio where like slavery was outlawed so long ago, and that we wouldn't like there would still be that much segregation, that much hatred going on. Like not that far from me, and really not that long ago in time. Um, and definitely see like all the reasons for why we needed the civil rights movement and why things are the way they are today. The writing style in here is really nice. I love this like poetry kind of style going on here. A lot of her writing is just lyrical. I love the way the sentences flow. She has great descriptive voice. But the dialogue is also very much this poor rural community. A lot of slang, a lot of improper grammar. So it works together. It seems like they should be jarring, like this well written description versus like this poor language, but it works together, which is cool and creates like this whole. Definitely does a good job of capturing like this feel of like being back in time and being in this community. It works. For this, I listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by Toni Morrison. I tried to read the paper book and like was not having it, so I found the audiobook and that worked wonderfully. So if you're having trouble with actual writing style, I recommend the audiobook. Some of the description though gets really, really gross. It's definitely a very true look at life. From like Pecola first getting her period, which was kind of iffy, to like different people and like getting sexually aroused, which was kind of awkward, to flat out a pretty descriptive look at this rape scene. And also, there's another character that's a pedophile and like why he likes little girls, and it's super awkward. Um, so there's definitely some moments where I was cringing and like, ew, while this book was happening. But Toni Morrison did a good job of like describing this wide life experiences that people have. So props for that, but also kind of awkward and uncomfortable. There is an afterword in here where Toni Morrison talks about like what she was trying to do with this book and whether or not she succeeded, what she thought she failed on, which is cool to see her thoughts on like this book. So this was definitely a worthwhile read, even if it wasn't an easy read. Yeah, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So yeah, if you guys have read this book or read any of Toni Morrison's other books, let me know in the description below what you thought of them. And yeah, peace out. I love you guys and keep reading. Bye.